Sure, that's okay. I'm like, yeah, fine. I give it to everybody.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome back to the State House. I call the Committee on Commerce order and welcome my colleagues and all of you, and especially Senator Waters, who's going to get us started with our first bill of the new year, Senate Bill 417. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Senator David Waters, District 4, here to introduce Senate Bill 417. I want to let the committee know that I'll be introducing actually the amendment that we have, 0030, which you all have. By way of preface, let me say I bring this forward on behalf of Dover Youth to Youth, and the students are here to testify in more detail about some of the scientific backgrounds and facts that are underlying this request. And I also want to give a special thanks to the Liquor Commission for working on language that makes this a very simple form of signage and no real difficulty for presentation of it should this pass. So the main purpose of the bill is, as in the first section here, to add the phrase drinking alcoholic beverages may increase cancer risk to the existing warning that we require to be posted at this time, which notes the advice that women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects. This arises from research in the Surgeon General's report for many scientific studies over the last years, noting the links between alcoholic beverages and potential increase in cancer risk. There are many different kinds of cancer, some particularly that afflict women. And so it seemed that this would be a useful health warning to add to the existing warning that we have about drinking during pregnancy. I think that what's particularly important about this warning and what is very much revealed in the Surgeon General and other research reports on which that was based is the lifetime over decades risk of cancer. As we know, many cancers are slow to develop, but if it is fairly clear that over extended periods of time at certain levels of alcohol consumption that indeed there is this increased risk, then that's why I think particularly for younger people, people in their 20s and 30s who, may recognize that, yeah, there are some old people who do get esophageal or breast cancer that may well be related to alcohol consumption, but may not think very much about how this is something that accrues over time. So I think you'll hear a lot more about the science behind this and why this seems to be an appropriate warning to offer folks who consume this legal beverage. I spent considerable time working with the Liquor Commission saying, what's easy for you to do? I thought, well, maybe just the state stores. And they said, no, when we do these health warnings, we do them everywhere. And so what we came up with is something very simple. Is there's an existing sign which is printed, and the Liquor Commission can provide those at little to no cost, and it just means that when they print them, they will then just add this phrase to the warning that is already posted. Another option, though, was developed, said maybe it'd be even easier for those places that they don't want to put up the poster, because they do have the option, if they have a little display board or a screen, an electric message board in which this comes up periodically with other messages, that would be very easy, just simple reprogramming to add this phrase to the existing warning that those message boards use. And then notice starting on line 12, this will not be any cost to the folks that have to post the physical sign, because the Liquor Commission is going to print them and they're going to provide them from the Liquor Fund. And they shall be distributed to all on-premise and off-premise licensees within 1 year. So this gives some time, when they're going to renew these signs and the regular kind of work at that then they will print the signs, they'll have them at no cost, and over the next year they'll be able to get them out to folks. So there it is. And as I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I am in committee over in Energy Natural Resources. I have a bill to go introduce. So if I can have the questions reserved for the true experts who are here to speak today. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We can do that, Senator, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, we have three folks from Denver Youth to the Youth, Eleanor Gorman, Braden Gilbert, and Megan Merrigan. Would you like to come up together or separately? And feel free to pull up a chair if you'd like. And please introduce yourselves and where you're from into the microphones before you speak. Good morning.
Hi, my name's Eleanor Gorman. I'm from Dover, New Hampshire.
Okay.
My name is Megan Merrigan. I'm also from Dover, New Hampshire.
And my name is Braden Gilbert, also from Dover.
All right, good morning. The floor is yours.
All right. We are all members of Dover Youth, an after-school drug prevention program. Today we are here to encourage you to pass Senate Bill 417 in order to warn the community about the increased risk of cancer due to alcohol consumption. It is crucial that awareness surrounding this issue is raised because alcohol has been shown to cause an elevated risk in many types of cancer.
According to the 2025 U.S. Surgeon General's report titled Alcohol and Cancer Risk, 2025 U.S. Surgeon General's Advisory, consuming alcohol increases the risk of developing at least 7 types of cancer. This includes cancer of the colon/rectum, larynx, liver, throat, mouth, esophagus, and breast. The risk of breast cancer due to alcohol consumption is particularly noticeable in women. At 2 drinks a day, about 4 more women out of 100 develop breast cancer.
Furthermore, the report goes on to state that in 2020, at least 741,300 cancer cases could be connected to alcohol consumption. The Center for Disease Control, or CDC's website, states that drinking alcohol can raise cancer risk because alcohol can disrupt cell cycles, increase chronic inflammation, and damage your DNA. The CDC goes on to say, DNA is the cell's instruction manual that controls how a cell grows and does its job. When DNA is damaged, a cell can grow out of control and become cancer.
The alcohol policy proposed in this bill is incredibly important because the Surgeon General report also shares that only 45% of adult Americans are aware that drinking increases cancer risk. In comparison, 89% of adults are aware of the link between tobacco and cancer. In the U.S., the third leading preventable cause of cancer is alcohol consumption. We are not saying that every person who drinks will get cancer due to alcohol, but any amount of alcohol consumption will increase the risk. The more somebody drinks, the higher the likelihood of them getting cancer. If so many people are not aware of these issues, then they cannot take the necessary steps to lower their risk due to drinking.
Currently, alcoholic products are only required to provide very limited warnings. These warning labels state that 1, according to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects. 2, consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery and may cause health problems. This exact language is required by a federal law, the Alcoholic Beverage Labeling Act from 1988. These labels have not been updated to reflect modern science regarding alcohol in 37 years and still barely touches on alcohol's many health effects. The ads and signage provided by the alcohol industry include even less warning, often only stating a short message like drink responsibly. Displaying this information in all areas required by this bill would be incredibly important in raising awareness surrounding the connection between alcohol and cancer, because the industry's advertisements and products do not.
For all these reasons, we feel this is a critical issue impacting the health of our communities, and the lack of knowledge about alcohol and cancer could impact the lives and safeties of New Hampshire families. If people are unaware of this risk, they are unable to take precautions in order to protect themselves from that risk. We urge you to raise awareness of the link between alcohol and cancer by voting to pass Senate Bill 417. Thank you so much for your time, and we would be happy to answer any questions now.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Very well done, by the way. Questions from anyone? No, seeing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have Kevin Daigle and Mike Summers up next from the Grocers Association. Do you want to come together or separately? Are they here? Yeah.
So Kevin's Grocers and I'm Lodging and Restaurant.
Yeah, he didn't indicate that he wanted to speak. Oh, that's right, your restaurant, of course. My mistake. All right.
So I can sit
Yeah,
here.
Kevin Daigle signed in, but did not indicate he wanted to speak. So, Mr. Summers, welcome.
Thank you. I feel like I'm sitting at the little kids' table. Sorry. So for the record, my name is Mike Summers. I'm the president and CEO of the New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. We are here in opposition to Senate Bill 417. Just to start, I will say that right now, under law, we are required to post at least 16 different things in our businesses today. This would be number 17. At what point are we just wallpapering our businesses, which gets a little bit ridiculous, frankly? I also think that in today's day and age with social media, et cetera, I think everybody knows what the risks are of these behaviors. You could also start to, encapsulate things like, THCs, et cetera. But I think at this point, everybody knows what the risks are, and then people are making their personal decisions themselves. The other thing we struggle with is, it says in a prominent place. So what does that mean? Is that on the front door? Does that mean that it can be by the bathrooms? What is the definition of that? So that's a little bit ambiguous for us. So basically, I will also suggest that our businesses right now are struggling. I think we all know the challenging economic times we are in right now. And the last thing we would want to do as businesses is discourage people to come in and spend time in our businesses and consume the products that we have available to them. So with that said, we certainly hope you find this inexpedient to legislate, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Summers? Seeing none. Thank you
you.
very much. Appreciate it. Next, we have Kate Fay from New Futures who would like to speak. Good morning.
Morning, how are you? Happy New Year.
Good to see you.
I feel extra short this morning. Great. Good morning. My name is Kate Fry. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy in New Futures. I'm just happy I didn't have to follow those incredible kids from Dover Youth to Youth. They have said most of what was in my testimony. We do support House Bill 417, which requires state liquor outlets to post warnings, just like they do already with birth defects. It's very strong scientific evidence of the relationship with cancer, and not only heavy consumption of alcohol, but even lighter consumption of alcohol. As far as what was said earlier, that everyone knows this information, New Futures was actively involved in getting information out in January when the Surgeon General released the report. And it was surprising how many folks reached out to us saying they didn't know how strong the evidence was, especially young people. So I think there's a disagreement as far as how well known that is. But one thing I just did want to focus more on anything, we're really fortunate to have such a cooperative alcohol beverage control agency. I talk all the time to my peers in other states. That is not the same situation with other states. The Liquor Commission has been very supportive of prevention messaging, and we, with issues around drinking during pregnancy, and most recently creating a video for 211, getting mental health and substance use resources and services out there. So we hope that they will follow suit, and New Futures is happy to support them or this committee in any way we can to have this move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there questions? Yes, Senator Richard.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Good, how are you, Senator?
So it's been a while since my son's been in school, but I recall that through the DARE program and other programs that the education was provided to the students. Is that something that still goes on?
I think the DARE program I don't know as much about, and there were concerns on evidence-based there, but with other issues, I think groups, we're very fortunate to have groups like Dover Youth to Youth, but there is not always a consistent messaging across. And I think the issue around alcohol too, especially with youth, it's very normalized. And so it's hard to get that messaging across, especially when you're a young person. You're not necessarily thinking about health issues. So I would say there's some. We have some great prevention coalitions, but I don't think we can hang our hat on that completely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on Senate Bill 417? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 417, and in a moment, we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 524. You want that one? All right, Senator McHugh is ready to go, so I'm going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 524. Welcome our committee member and colleague, Senator Tim McHugh. Please introduce your bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, and my fellow members of Commerce. I'm Senator Tim McHugh. I represent District 11, which is Merrimack, Milford, Amherst, and Wilton, home to some really great Mexican restaurants, Asian restaurants, all of which have been known to serve the perfect cocktail to accompany your takeout, except that you can't take out your favorite cocktail. For instance, if you just don't happen to stock tequila and you've ordered a great Mexican dinner, and rather than sit at the bar and then get in your car, this would allow you the option of getting that single margarita to bring home to enjoy with your enchiladas. So that's, in a nutshell, the purpose of this bill. You might decide you want to get a single Mai Tai because you don't have all the exotic ingredients for your New Year's Eve Chinese food. This would be another way to do that. So I just wanted to thank a couple of folks who've helped with this. Chairman Mollick, of course, and Chief Armaganian is behind me, and the New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association, Mike Summers, and Lieutenant Culver recently provided me with some improved language. The House did take up this issue. It's been taken up before. They passed some language that is somewhat better than Senate Bill 524 that you have in front of you. Some of the folks behind me will speak to the specifics of it, but I'll talk a little bit about the handout on your desk. It's sort of a blank top, but it says 17821 restaurant delivery license. This is the language that was adopted by the House recently. It actually took another bill that was on a different topic and completely amended it. So this particular language has some more defined specifics on how the process would be executed. It has the licensing fee, which actually is the same, and that's one thing I'll offer to the committee, whether we want to create another licensing fee on top of the on-premise license that the dispenser would already have. I think we should possibly consider making it a privilege. So if they choose to offer takeout beverages or delivery, I'm not sure they need a separate license, but that's something for the committee to consider. Also, there's in subparagraph D of this 17821 handout, it limits how wine is transported to the original containers. So that would limit the selection a little bit. So I'll ask the Lodging and Restaurant Association to speak to that. We know there are those single serving little mini wine glasses with sealed tops. So that's ideal, but the variety of that is fairly small. So I'd offer that the incidence of wanting to try a different wine without buying a whole bottle of it, this is a perfect solution for that. So I'll let them speak to that and let the commission speak to how that, but I see no reason that a glass of wine couldn't be packaged in a similar fashion to a mixed spirits cocktail. So that's the bill. This should provide not only some additional revenue to our licensees, but a safety factor to the community. I think plenty of people go in and order takeout and sit at the bar and have a drink while they're waiting for their takeout. And then what do they do with that right after that? They get in the car. So this is a way to package that beverage a little more safely and take it home and keep some impaired drivers off the road, I hope. So that's it. I'm happy to take questions on the specifics of the bill or any of that.
Any questions, Senator Ricciardi?
Good morning. Thanks for taking my question. I just wanted to ask, when it's delivered, is it required that you show that you're of age to drink? Or I just wondered how that was going to get.
That's a great question, and I'll leave it for enforcement. I think that language is in here, but that is a good question, actually.
Because, somebody could have a real good time and order their food and drinks and be 17, so.
And similar to home delivery of shipped in alcohol that are always sent with an adult signature required. Some language like that should be in here. I'll just double check and see where it is.
But I just wanted to ask for the public to hear.
Yeah, it certainly should be. So
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything more? Senator Fett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I like the bill, I'm co-sponsor. 2 questions. There's other states that do this already, correct?
Mhm.
And then any issues on food delivery services like DoorDash? Like if they try to buy an alcoholic beverage on DoorDash, or is that separate than this?
no, this would just be the same. If you stayed in Boston recently, you probably know that you can DoorDash a full liquor order from the liquor store. There's a couple of different apps that offer that. Similar.
Thank you.
Okay.
We haven't gotten that far yet, though,
No, not yet.
on that.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There are a number of folks who signed in but did not indicate they want to speak. So we might be a little rusty, so I'm just going to read those names. If you want to come up, please do. We have Chief Pat Sullivan from the New Hampshire Association of Police. Okay, and then we have Sheriff Bill Wright from the Sheriff's Association. Okay, and then we have Mike Summers back again from New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. Good morning again.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, for the record, Mike Summers, President and CEO of New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. So this is actually a bill that Senator McHugh approached us, and we love the idea. So we certainly thank him for submitting this bill. First of all, the first question was how many states are already doing this? I believe there are 37 states in the United States that now allow this. To respond to the other question about 21 or older, yes, there has to be a signed receipt by somebody who you have verified is 21 years old in order to receive product if it's delivered to your home. And obviously, if it's in a restaurant setting, we would be checking that ID anyways. And then to speak to, I'll speak kind of briefly to a couple of the changes, but I'll let liquor enforcement get into the details of what happened in House Bill 529. So there was a lot of work that has been done since this bill was filed, which was a carryover bill in House Commerce. But there was a couple of things that changed, and some of it's a little bit structural, which I think actually is a really smart idea. So for example, liquor enforcement suggested that rather than trying to put mixed drinks to go in the transportation of beer and wine, which is where the beer and wine license had lived, but to create a separate license that stood apart from the transportation piece. So transportation would revert to the statute as it was prior to beer and wine being allowed for delivery. And now you would have a license that's essentially just for these 3 products to be for takeout and delivery, which I think is cleaner and makes a lot more sense. The license fee for folks to add this on, I think it was really just a way for liquor enforcement to track who is actually engaging in this activity, which I think is probably okay as part of a control. So we were kind of fine with that. And then the other thing I will say, and liquor enforcement can speak to this specifically, but there were some additional things added to House Bill 529 that were some corrections from last year. And then one other small change that was actually very important to us. So there was, last year, we were approached by liquor enforcement and it was shared with us that if a restaurant, as it operates right now, was to decide to close its business for a private party, so it would not be open to the public just for a private party, that would be in violation of the standards of a definition of a restaurant and their license. So we had asked Chairman Hunt if we could include that in this amendment piece. So that is also included in House Bill 529. And obviously, I think most of you have probably been to a private party at a restaurant where it was closed to the public, because I don't think most of the industry is aware that that is an issue. So we would certainly be very supportive of Senator McHugh's bill, and if we could take the language of 529 and put it into it, I think it corrects a whole bunch of issues, which I think would work great. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes?
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair.
Reardon, yes.
Thank you for taking my question. So when I first read this, I was under the impression that it would be restaurant employees that would be doing the
Correct.
delivery of this. It won't be DoorDash.
Correct. And I will let liquor enforcement speak to this as well, but my understanding is it would have to be a W-2 employee that would be doing deliveries. And so therefore, is a clear chain of custody from the restaurant, the employee that delivers it to the property, and the person that signs it who is verified as age 21. So again, I think these are the good controls that we worked on over the fall that really put all of that in place.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Summers. Appreciate it. Kate Fry from New Futures. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator McHugh, did you have a question? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Welcome back.
Hello again. My name is Kate Fry. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy at New Futures. We're here today to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 524. I just want to explain a little bit of the history on this bill and how we've been involved in this. I remember having the first conversation with Mike Summers pre-pandemic about this bill, and then the pandemic happened, and this moved very quickly, obviously. New Hampshire Liquor Commission at the time had concerns. As New Futures, it's a big departure from the three-tier system, having alcohol delivered. What were going to be a lot of the safeguards around that. And at the time, the Liquor Commission was adamant that it would not be cocktails and it was just wine and beer. And we were fortunate again that they put several provisions into the statute, at least around who can deliver it, employees only, where it can be delivered to. And so we started out with that law, but New Futures was very curious about how that would be implemented and looking at what's happened in other states. We worked with the Liquor Commission to get a grant through the National Association of Beverage Control Administrators in 2022, and a lot of our public health advocates worked on interviewing those who had license. They interviewed 2,100 licensees that were eligible for the license. Only 37 had applied, so not a lot were even using it. When our public health networks reached out to them, a lot of them said, oh, we're not even using that. But what was more concerning was when there was enforcement activity, when the Liquor Commission followed up. There was a 22% failure rate of those licensees for delivering alcohol to minors. So we were fortunate that the Liquor Commission had created a curriculum and had done a lot of follow-up, so that number got better. But my question to the Liquor Commission and to all of you is, if we're adding cocktails to the mix, is there additional enforcement around this? What is the Liquor Commission doing beyond this initial grant that we have to have consistent enforcement so there isn't delivery to minors? We have worked with a lot of prevention coalitions who are very concerned about this because of that reason. We also have worked with a lot of other states who really are challenged by this law because of the cocktails to go. You will see it in some other states being just almost like a McDonald's liquor or container. I know that's not the intent for this bill, and I'm glad to see that seal around it, but a lot of states have not been able to figure this out. So I would just like more information from the Liquor Commission about enforcement, about the sealed, and how they plan to be consistent so these aren't being delivered to minors.
Okay. All right. Questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. The Liquor Commission is here. I'd like to invite you gentlemen to join us. Good morning.
Thank you.
Again, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year. and esteemed committee members. For the record, my name is Mark Armaganian. I'm the Chief of Liquor Enforcement and Licensing. With me here today is Lieutenant Matt Culver. He is actually our administrative lieutenant who runs our licensing unit. Thank you for the opportunity to, Senator McHugh, thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this. I think we have proven to a lot of people that between the House and the Senate that we're willing to work on a various amount of issues that will progress this industry in a fair and equitable way, but at the same time, more importantly, in a safe way. History, like Kate Fry had said, history goes all the way back to COVID. When this was brought about, along with the delivery license on beverages and wine, frankly, I opposed it. There was no consideration for integrity seals. It was going to walk over the open container law on vehicles. It was going to walk over transportation of alcohol. And all those other laws that are in place for the safety of our drivers and our, quite frankly, our consumers. As time went on and data had clearly shown, there wasn't really that interest in this world. But as you can see, those numbers are, we have more up-to-date numbers than Kate, and we've worked extremely close with Kate and New Futures. We're at 30 now, today. It doesn't seem like it is something that's going to drastically alter that industry. But at the same time, we noticed that my colleagues around in New England, around our state, or who surround our state, who do this, they had actually shown or spoke about the interest they had in integrity seals that their states had not taken on. Vermont was pretty much, and I'm being a little facetious, but putting the straw in the top of the McDonald's cup was breaking the integrity of it, and it just wasn't working for me. As the senator and I had spoken about, and quite frankly, Representative Hunt had spoken about, is if there is a way to get an integrity seal on this vehicle, if you will, vehicle being the conduit of consumption, we would hear that out. And the containers that were shown were very robust, to include crowlers, cans, crimped cans that those drinks could be in. But one of the things we did want to know was what was inside, for enforcement purposes, what was inside the container. We got to a really good understanding of that being documented, what was going to be inside that container. Just because some of the drinks that are provided by some of our licensees can be very, very robust. So for investigative purposes, doing our part with lowering motor vehicle fatalities and those negative incidents that occur out there in our state, which nobody wants to see. We don't want to see an initiative fail just because we're not doing our due diligence. And we felt that not only did the senator do his due diligence on this, but everybody that had been looking at this had been doing their due diligence. Whatever that integrity seal might end up being look like, from something that we used to use at my old job to seal evidence when those years that I worked homicide, to crimping a can, which you would similarly to what you would buy in the grocery store and our combination stores. Matt can speak more to the intricate details of what is different, and where we added in a quick fashion, where we added to this. But to answer a couple questions, Senator, yes, there's signature requirements. And we had shied away, Senator Fenton, to your question, we had shied away from Uber Eats and Grubhub because we found that those companies weren't doing their due diligence in age requirements, verifying age. So at the end of the day, they were not a licensee. We felt that a W-2 employee of that establishment is a branch of that establishment. We could hold them responsible for not verifying age and those negative things that could happen with underage children acquiring these products. So at that point, we opted in the first version of this, the first iteration of this, which was just beverages and wine, to have a W-2 employee as the deliverer. We have not heard any pushback from that. In fact, probably the opposite. Some of the fees, and not to get into it because I'm not an expert in those two delivery services, but it actually bumps up the fees pretty substantially to what these licensees are willing to pay or have in their establishments. So I will give the floor to Matt that he can talk about the intricate details of what has changed.
All right. Mr. Culver.
Good morning, and thank you, Senators, Chairman. For the record, Matthew Culver, New Hampshire State Liquor Commission, Division of Enforcement and Licensing. As you've heard through prior testimony, there were a couple changes from the original bill. The language that has been recommended in House Bill 529 separates all of the restaurant delivery license language out of RSA 179-15. In our current statutes, transportation of beverage and wine is covered by RSA 179-15. And the transportation of liquor is covered by 175-6 is the transportation of liquor. So adding liquor into the transportation of beverage and wine makes it a little confusing for the read on that. So we separated it out, made it its own statute in 178-21. It is actually, we consider it a different license type, so it makes sense to be in the chapter that covers all of the licenses. That was the reasoning for that. The second change on this was specifically on the labeling of the product. It does have to be sealed, but we also wanted the controls of having it properly labeled, not just an empty container that nobody would know that there was alcohol in that. So there was provisions made for the current bill to include things like the type of brand of the liquor used to make the alcoholic beverage, the alcohol by volume of the liquor to use to make the alcoholic beverage, and the amount of liquor contained in the alcoholic beverage. And lastly, the major change would be to consider a warning label on that product as well. So the product has to be sealed. It has to have the information, what's in the product, or the drink, and it has to have the warning label on it as well. Surgeon General's warning label.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Questions, Senator McHugh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for taking my question. Lieutenant Culver, for you. Have there been a lot of problems documented? I haven't heard of any on the secondary delivery service.
Yep. Thank you for your question, Senator. Across the nation, and of course you heard the testimony that there's over 30 states that have adopted the restaurant delivery license, and it all stemmed, as you've already heard, from the time of COVID. Where states generally ran into some problems was introducing the third-party delivery system, the Uber Eats, the Grubhubs. That's where a lot of the problems with sales to minors and things we emphatically try to prevent from happening were occurring. In the state, with our licensing system, it was very difficult to incorporate those because we have the licensing process, right? So those entities, those business entities, third-party entities, weren't licensees. So when you have a non-licensee delivering to the consumer, it makes it very difficult for us to hold them accountable for that. And you can't necessarily hold the original licensee accountable because they're not the ones that delivered or gave or sold the product. So that's where the major problems occurred nationwide. We did a comprehensive initiative in conjunction with New Futures that was funded by NABCA on the restaurant delivery license compliance check program. And in that program, it was broken down in several phases. The first phase was to conduct the compliance check. The second phase was to provide training. We developed a training program specifically for the restaurant delivery licensees. We initiated the compliance check program, made sure that they, with our underage buyers, very similar to our current alcohol compliance checks. And we did have failures in that. At the time, there was 27 licensees. 6 of those had sold to minors in that. We provided the training, trained all of those who failed the compliance check. On phase 2, we rechecked all of the licensees to see what our efficacy was in the training program. At that time, we had 39 licensees, and we had a 0 failure rate on that.
Okay. Follow up.
Thank you. So very successful program from 6 violations to 0 and
Correct.
even more licensees that could have potentially violated. So it sounds like that was pretty effective. My question is, if this bill is limited to a licensee, a restaurant or whatnot, having to stand up their own delivery personnel, maybe it's a question for lodging and restaurants, I'm questioning how often it will be taken advantage of. I understand there'd still be the option of the consumer picking up their own food, but it seems to me that most people who order takeout use a delivery service. I actually don't know the numbers on that, but I'm guessing that it would be limiting if a restaurant had to have a special delivery person for every order that had a takeout beverage in it. So is there a way, I guess my question is there a way for the customer's agent, that delivery agent, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, to be responsible? What's the gating issue to prevent that? If the driver that picks it up is 21 and they're essentially the customer, they're the customer's agent. So can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe it's impossible, but.
Certainly, and thank you for that. I think the remaining issue on that is the provisions of RSA 179.5, the prohibited sales, which is very specific on how the alcohol gets delivered, sold, or given away. The statute is very, very specific on it. So it's the accountability piece there for the third party. There is no exception written into that law for an agent of a licensee. It only accounts for, in our case, the licensee or a person. So if you had a third-party delivery person and they inadvertently or deliberately sold an alcoholic beverage to a minor off of a delivery system, there'd be no accountability on the behalf of the licensee. You would criminally only be able to charge the person who sold. So, and again, nationwide, that is where most of these issues have occurred, is through the third-party delivery.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your testimony. We had 2 late sign-ins for this one. Mr. Drew Klein is the first of the 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Drew Klein, and president of the Josiah Bartlett Center for Public Policy, New Hampshire's free market think tank. So we were looking at this issue. Obviously, we've looked at it several years now. And when you go back to COVID, New Hampshire took a kind of wait and see approach when most other states were allowing legalized cocktails to go and takeout cocktails. And that's been almost 6 years, if you can believe it, since we first legalized these things in other states. And My numbers had 31 states permanently legalizing this and 3 more temporarily, but I would actually defer to Mike Summers on the total number. So it's 37 states. That's almost 75% of the states in the United States that allow to-go cocktails. There have been some concerns about those to-go containers, but I don't think there's really, I mean, we've heard testimony today, I don't think there's really a lot of concern about sealing those, about people drunk driving with them. You can do a simple boba tea cup sealer. Those are $79 at Home Depot, or you can get an industrial one. They're pretty effective. You can do this in Maine. There are a couple of bars in Maine that one in Kittery actually cans its own cocktails to go. And then there's one in Portland that bottles its own drinks to go. So you can do that on site pretty easily. So I don't think that's an issue. There has been, you've heard concerns about drunk driving fatalities. The R Street Institute, which is a think tank in DC, decided to take a look at this. And they found something really interesting. They looked at the increase in drunk driving fatalities from 2019 to 2020 when you had this huge surge in cocktails to go and drinks to go. What they found was really insightful, I think. States that prohibited entirely alcohol delivery from restaurants and bars saw their alcohol-impaired drunk driving fatality rates rise by 17.8%. This is just alcohol, just restaurants and bars. States that allowed for alcohol delivery from restaurants and bars saw their drunk driving fatality rates rise by 14.42%, so lower rate. If you're looking at all to-go drinks combined, not just restaurants, but all licensees, because some states allowed it from, grocery stores and et cetera. If you look at all of it, states that didn't allow any alcohol to go saw their drunk driving fatalities raise by 53.6%. States that did allow some form of alcohol to go saw their drunk driving fatalities rise by only 12.5%. Now, we don't know why those numbers diverge, but I think we can maybe guess a little bit. And one of the guesses would be that states that forced people to stay in the establishment and have that last drink saw higher drunk driving rates. That would be my guess. We don't know that for sure. But what we do know is there was no increase in drunk driving fatalities caused by these to-go drinks. So that's pretty clear. New Hampshire's experienced a high rate of bar and restaurant closures in the last few years, as I'm sure you've all seen. What we found from other states is that there was this big spike in cocktails to go and drinks to go, and then it kind of leveled off after the pandemic as people were able to go back to restaurants and bars. But in the states where this is allowed, when you read interviews with restaurant owners and bar owners, they say that it can contribute quite a lot to their bottom line, anywhere from 1% to 10 or 20 or 30%, depending on the season, the month, and what kind of drinks they're doing. So just allowing them to sell these for takeout, most of it's takeout. So the delivery portion is interesting, and you guys can decide how you're going to do that, but most of it occurs in takeout. And allowing them to go in and get that cocktail and put it in a sealed container and leave really does help the bottom lines of these places. So I think that when you look at the whole picture together, this is a pretty easy call for New Hampshire, especially considering when all of our neighboring states allow cocktails to go now, and we're the only state in New England that doesn't allow it. So when you're looking at both a tourism point of view, but also a workforce point of view, we want to keep our young people in the state and attract more young people in the state. This is one of those minor issues that attacks on to all the other issues that just makes it a little bit of a harder sell. So, it would ease up on that pressure as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. Any questions? Seeing none. Appreciate your testimony. Sarah Scott is here as well and would like to speak. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Scott, and I'm the Deputy State Director for Americans for Prosperity here in New Hampshire. I'll keep this brief because Drew's already covered a lot of what I was going to say. So, like I said, I'm here today to testify in support of SB 524. Americans for Prosperity advocates for policies that remove unnecessary barriers, encourage innovation, and give small businesses the flexibility that they need to succeed. And we think that SB 524 does exactly that. New Hampshire's restaurants are facing a lot of economic constraints right now. I think everybody's familiar with that. I live out in the Seacoast, and I've seen countless restaurants close in Dover and Portsmouth over the last 5 or so years. And so this industry is already built on very thin margins. And the recent years, things like rising food costs, labor shortages have just tightened that squeeze even more. Many local restaurants are trying to do things like adjust hours, cut back on their menus just to keep the doors open. So we see this as essential to their survival and letting them find ways to continue to innovate and provide a way for them to continue moving ahead here. New Hampshire, like Drew and I think others have mentioned, has already taken steps in this direction. So prior to 2020, it was totally illegal for us to have any to-go alcohol. We made that step with beer and wine. And like the Liquor Commission has said, they ended up actually supporting that change when we got out of the pandemic and put this into a permanent law. So I guess I'd just kind of like wrap up by saying that we think that SB 524 builds logically upon the success that we've already seen. And it doesn't dismantle any safeguards or, expand alcohol access irresponsibly. It just allows restaurants to deliver or take out alcohol with their food under clear enforceable rules. So from a policy standpoint, Americans for Prosperity sees this as an ideal policy. It's voluntary. We're not forcing restaurants to participate in this. It just relies on market choice. And so we think that this really modernizes the world based on real world experiences and brings us in line with other states around us. I also live on the border of Maine, so I see Maine having, there are a lot of restaurants that I could choose to get takeout from across the border in Maine, and I could order a cocktail there, but then just across the border in New Hampshire, and I can't do that anymore. So just to kind of wrap up, I would say that we support this bill and encourage the committee to pass it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none, appreciate it very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on Senate Bill 524 who didn't sign in? All right, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 524 and pick up 563 in just a moment. We are running about 20 minutes behind. All right, well, look, you're already there. Good morning. I'm going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 563. And we have the sponsoring senator, Senator Reardon, here to introduce the bill with Steve Dupree. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Commerce Committee. Senate Bill 563, direct shipping of wine, was brought on behalf of my constituent sitting beside me here, and he and those that follow will have more details. But I want to note for the committee that it's obvious that New Hampshire depends not only on travel, tourism, and hospitality, but also liquor revenue for a substantial portion of our revenue. These industries are successful here in New Hampshire, partly because we're blessed with a beautiful state, some really strategic marketing, and really hardworking businesses that have made those efforts successful. But with that said, when the users of our processes and systems identify an obstacle or a barrier to being successful in those businesses, that I think it's something that we should pay a lot of attention to. The unique and memorable experience of people here in the state of New Hampshire, in our hospitality industry, in our restaurants will bring them back, and they will be frequent supporters of those businesses. And wine choices are one of those things. I will say that we are probably better suited to accommodate what's working here in the state of New Hampshire to continue that expense. And ultimately, the state is the beneficiary of the revenue earned. And I will turn it over to Mr. Dupree.
Mr. Dupree, good morning.
Thank you.
If you could turn your mic on,
Yes,
please.
Andy,
There we
hello. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I've talked to our folks at the Liquor Commission and other folks. Let me tell you what the issue is. I spend a significant amount of time in Napa Valley. So here are my goals. My goal is to help the state of New Hampshire sell more wine, good for everybody. I want to do it with the minimum of added cost. And I'll talk about that more a little bit in a minute. I'd like to add diversity to our wine choices, and I'd like to help restaurants. And here's how I think we do this, even though I will concede this legislation is drafted probably isn't the right way. First, a number of years ago, I met with members of the Liquor Commission. I said, when you take a shipment from Gallo and you put it in the warehouse and you ship it off to the store in Conway and you put it on the shelves and you dust the shelves and you pay the state employee and the benefits and you sell it, what do you make? And the ballpark was about a 25% margin. And I said, wouldn't it be great if you could make that same margin and not have to have all that expense? Then placed against that is this information. I know you have a letter from the California Wine Institute, a fine organization. I like to refer to it as the Gallo Mondavi Institute. But in California in 2025, there were 4,864 wineries. There are 72% of those, that is 3,500 to 4,000 of those wineries make less than 3,000 cases. There are 3,189 of those wineries that make 1 to 4,900, and probably, I'll give you more statistics, there are 1,000, 70% of the wineries in the state of California are making less than 500 cases. And you go, why would that be? Here's what's happened. In 1983, I walked into Napa Valley and said, I'd like to buy an acre of Cabernet grapes. The price was $30,000. I walked in 2023 and the price was $800,000. So what's happened in the wine industry, if you're not one of the established players, most of the wineries today buy an acre or two of grapes and they produce 100 to 500 cases. Some of the best wines in the world. For example, this Ragazzi here, which I'm going to leave with Mark to drink, makes a total of 150 cases. Only 40 cases of this, and they sell it all direct to their consumers and to one restaurant. They don't have a wholesaler. No distributor or broker wants them because you can't afford to market that. At the same time, we have a little problem here in New Hampshire. I hate to admit that the state of Maine or the state of Vermont have anything that's better than we are. But if you look at the Beard Award winners and finalists, they have produced a similar or larger amount of recognized restaurants, in part because they have greater wine diversity. So when you say, if I could ship this wine to Haley and Bear, my new restaurant across the street, and offer it as a featured wine and pair it with food, and I have a level 2 sommelier working there, I would attract business to my restaurant that wouldn't be people who would buy the same wine at one of our fine liquor stores. These small wineries are desperate for any channel to get rid of their wine. They sell most of it in clubs. I'll give you another example. My good friend who owns Shabumi Knoll, they have 1,000 cases. They got 97 points from Wine Spectator for the highest score ever given in a decade to a California Chardonnay. And it would be impossible to find it anywhere. They're on the wine list. They sell direct and the French Laundry, and they would sell to me, but they can't. It's a premium wine. It's $100 to $200 a bottle. It would help the restaurants by creating, obviously, a marketing panache, gives you a level of distinction. So here's why don't they ship here? Number one, and I thank Mike Summers for helping me on this since we put in this bill. Under the bill for direct shipping, which is allowed, 17827, section Roman numeral 3 says that if you ship more than 600 liters of any particular wine directly to a combination of licensees or consumers, you have to offer to sell a matching amount to the commission at the lower of the wholesale price or the lowest price delivered to New Hampshire. So I think the solution, and I work in cases, not liters, but they can figure that out, would be to give an exemption or raise that level so that they not have to sell wholesale to the state. I wouldn't make it for any licensee. I would make it, and we were talking with Mark about this and the team, I would make it for restaurants and hotels because that will help steer that business there. And I know the Wine Institute was all concerned about the 8% fee. I would lower the registration fee from $100 to some nominal amount and have them assess a 25% fee and remit it directly to the state. I have spoken, because I spent a good amount of time in wineries, probably shows, I have spoken to over 100 small wine producers in Napa and Sonoma Valley. And I said, if you could sign up for $10 on a website and ship me 50 cases a year of this and just remit to the state a 25% premium on whatever you charge me, would you do it? They would do it all day long. They're not big enough to give it to the state to sell in the liquor stores. That's a good thing. It would help give a differentiation and help elevate our food business. It wouldn't require us to hire many more state employees or stack it in a warehouse and truck it to a place and dust the shelves and put it in the bags. So that's the problem I'm trying to solve. I can't see any losers here at all. And that's all I want to accomplish. I think we could do it by amending that 17827, particularly paragraph 3. And I think you have to make some changes to paragraph 2 where you could ship directly. That's it.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, both of you. Question, Senator McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see Mr. Dupree. Thank you, Senator Reardon, for taking my question. My question is just this: would they sell even more if it were 8% instead of 25%?
Sure they would, but I'm trying to make money for the state too, because it'll help keep my
I think we
taxes
have an
down.
existing fee that's around 8%.
Yeah,
on
but they
direct
pay the
shipment.
$100. And when I talk to them,
Okay.
they go, look, you know, if I'm going to send you 20 cases of this and you'll be the only restaurant in New Hampshire, it's easier. We should make it as easy as possible for these small guys because they survive by selling direct.
Okay. All right. Senator Shardy.
Thank you for your testimony and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
My question is, are you giving us samples today?
That's your question?
I'm giving Mark one.
Look, Dr. Oz says.
I probably should give it to Mike, who discovered the statute is the better solution than this draft bill, but I can find you lots of great wine, and in fact, I'm partial to a couple. Heather Vineyards is a very good wine, extraordinary Chardonnay, which I happen to own, and I get a permit to sell at the Grapponi Conference Center, but I can't sell at my restaurant yet.
Just a little levity,
All
okay?
right. No alcohol for breakfast.
I do have one interesting historical tidbit, having the value of having served in this organization 50 years ago. Back then, if you served on regulated revenues, which was liquor, we used to have a fight. I was chairman of the committee under Roberts that helped assign committee seats. And in the House, there used to be a fight to get on that committee. And you go, why? Because there are only a couple liquor bills. Because at that time, the Liquor Commission would give you an order form, and at Christmas every year, you got a case of wine or booze. Times have
bad.
gotten worse.
That seems like a good idea.
I do. I agree.
All right. Thank you both. Appreciate your testimony.
Can we do this now, though? That was I have one last follow-up question.
Yeah, no, let's not today. We're running behind as it is. Mr. Summers, please join us again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Mike Summers, President, CEO, New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association, here in support of this bill. I'll be very brief. I know you're short on time. Just to say that we are supportive of this in concept. The discussion about the proposed bill versus the existing statute and maybe some small amendments in the existing statute is a cleaner and simpler way to do this. Probably sounds right to us, but I will defer to liquor enforcement to speak to kind of how that would work. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions, but I'll get out of your way.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. I'd like to hold the Liquor Commission as the final speaker. I have Sean Thomas and Mark Valley who would like to speak. So you can come up together, separately, whatever works. All right. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Sean Thomas with the Merz, Presall and Thomas. With me is Mark Valley with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. We're both here today, as you can tell by our team uniform,
I noticed
representing the New Hampshire Wine and Spirits Brokers Association. So, I mean, let me just start by saying, and I think some of this has probably been cleared up, but I think our reason for testifying was just we were genuinely just a little bit confused as to sort of what the intent was here. I mean, from our perspective, the system today works well. It seems like what is trying to be accomplished can probably be accomplished under current law. I think, having heard Mr. Dupree, that's probably still the case to some extent. I mean, maybe that needs a little tinkering. Maybe there's some other changes. I don't think the way this bill is set up is the right approach, and he even indicated the same thing. But I mean, my comments primarily are to this bill specifically. I think importantly, we have talked to our counterparts, so major players on the direct shipping side. And this isn't just our view, but theirs. They'll tell you that New Hampshire has a very good system. It's one of the best in the country when it comes to regulating, tracking, and enforcing direct wine shipments. So obviously that's a credit to the Liquor Commission, but I think it speaks also to current law and to current framework. So, I mean, with that being said, again, the caveat now is we have a little bit better understanding, haven't heard Mr. Dupre, but hard to understand then why we would need a new license, presumably that comes with a new fee and obviously has a surcharge that's 25% instead of 8%. Just generally speaking about the brokers, sort of our role, our goal is to help the state on the compliance side with safety, make that more manageable for the commission. We aggregate compliance reporting, we provide oversight to reduce those risks, as well as reduce the administrative burden to the state. So I think these types of carve-outs, even if narrow, obviously well-intentioned, they start to chip away at that framework, which we know obviously is a good one, in its place. And in the case of this bill, and I think this is likely the case even with the change of approach. You have a situation now where you're talking direct winery by winery regulation by the commission, which I think adds a new layer here, new administrative burden, something to think about. So I'll just wrap up by saying, we think there's very likely a solution that doesn't involve this legislation specifically. If there's a role that we can play in sort of helping to facilitate that, we'd obviously be happy to be part of that conversation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. All right, any questions for the gentleman? Wow, all right, thank you both, appreciate it. Liquor Commission, welcome back.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And esteemed committee members, again, for the record, Mark Armaganian, Chief of Enforcement and Licensing for the Liquor Commission. With me here today, again, is Lieutenant Matt Culver, who runs our licensing and administrative side of the house. As you can tell, we have put a lot of time into this. And I know the five of you before me know that we, in the last, it's almost been a decade, that I was brought in here, we've changed our view on how to do business. And that was to make New Hampshire robust, to make sure that we do it safely within the industry that we're regulating right now. And I think we've accomplished that with our national accolades that we get quite often. And we are at the tip of the spear with our compliance and holding our licensees accountable when they fall a little short. We initially saw this as legislative redundancy, if you will. Our direct shippers statute right now, we believe is extremely robust. It has caps on it. Those caps are there to make sure that the representative system that is intact, which is a system that is utilized by, that system drives sales, of course. On the marketing side of the Liquor Commission. But I'm going to look at this from more of a enforcement side of the commission. That level is utilized by us to make sure that products that make it to our market are done in a safe fashion. And that's from manufacturing to service and hosting responsibly. We lean on this representative system pretty heavily in education. And at the end of the day, we have actually used them in some investigations that have shown counterfeit products that have tried to make it into our market at a very high level. And one I can think of right off the top of my head is Louis XIII. Those bottles, if anybody knows, are extremely expensive. They go 5 figures. A bottle was purchased, and we have a very user-friendly return policy. It came back when mom found out that much money was spent on a bottle of alcohol. We were confronted with the issue of, is this real? that made it back to us, the obvious. Anybody would think that. There are counterfeits, and just like there are counterfeit watches out there, there are counterfeits out there. And we had to make sure that that product was legitimate coming back. The bottles were not numbered, so we looked at the glass that the bottle was in, the seal that it was sealed with, and the labeling. And this level of product representation was utilized by us in the division quite frequently, actually, in this world when it comes to counterfeit products. As we look at this, and I'll let Matt speak more because I think us being late is because of me, so I apologize for that. I think as we look at this, we look at a couple of things, and that, number one, if we raise those caps that are in, I think that's more of a internal issue of, hey, if there are products that are not making it to the market because they're the small guy, we need to know about that. And I will tell you, this working group, and it was a working group, all the people that came up here, we worked really hard on getting us across the finish line, and I apologize that we weren't able to do that before you today. There's still, as Steve says, and you can tell there was a lot of kidding around that went on in those work groups, but we really tried to come to a resolution with this. But again, as you all talk to me, and I think everybody realizes that if consumer safety is breached or I feel like it's going in that direction, you need to make me feel really good about it. And I just didn't get there. And I apologize that we're taking your time up because I think most of the stuff that we bring before you has been vetted out pretty heavily before we get here. But again, that product familiarity is something that I rely on quite frequently, and I can't state that enough. Right now, the nominal fees of $100 is probably what it cost me to get that application done in the office with the workers that we have working on this. So to lower that fee would actually put a burden on the division. And at the same time, having those caps there, there is a conduit to get over those caps, and that conduit is a white paper to me asking for a special concession on the products making it in. It's as easy as a recommendation of approval from me and me going to the chairman of the board, Joe Malika, to ask for that approval process. So there is a safety valve in the current process. So that created a lot of our confusion too of why. And to the hallway just now is still the why are we doing this? And I think there's some good work that we could still do on this to get across the finish line. I don't know, I can't present anything to you today that tells you how we're going to get there because I see it as we can already do it. So if you have, Matt has some of the intricate details of what we were doing or what we had to, but in that respect, I'll leave it to Matt and your questions if you have any.
All right, Mr. Culver.
Thank you, Chairman, Senators. For the record again, Matthew Culver, New Hampshire State Liquor Commission, Division of Enforcement and Licensing. The way our direct shipping, very briefly, direct shipping program works in the state right now, the license permits are tiered based on whether you're a wine manufacturer, retailer, importer, wholesaler, so on and so forth. So the business, most typically out-of-state businesses, obtain a permit for a direct shipper, and that allows them to direct ship wine, in this case that we're talking about, wine into the state of New Hampshire. It's beverage, wine, or liquor that they are eligible to ship into New Hampshire. And that's directly to consumers or on-premises licensees. Currently, we have 1,259 direct shippers. 1,069 of those are classified as wine manufacturers. The wine manufacturer's direct shipping permit fee is $100. The limits that are being discussed right now are specific to the cases. So right now, if a single direct shipper shipped, they're allowed to not exceed 12 9-liter cases. So 12 cases of wine, that's 100, most typically 144 bottles of wine to any one individual consumer. A consumer is considered a person or a licensee. Okay? So if they exceed that amount, they have to get permission from the commission. The commission will grant that permission so long as that product is not sold already in the state of New Hampshire. That's how the system works. So if the product is not sold in the state of New Hampshire, then the permission will be given for that exception to exceed that amount.
Just jump in really quick. That trigger is there, that if we see, or the marketing side of the house sees something jumping up above that cap, that they have the opportunity to actually say, okay, we're seeing a market for this. We didn't see this, but we want to actually give them the opportunity to come into the Liquor Commission. It's just a trigger that is there. It's not there to impede it. It's there to actually help the commission see who's out there and if they have the opportunity to actually sell those products. Sorry.
Thank you, Chief. And the second parameter on here is if a direct shipper exceeds a total of 600 liters of any particular product. So that's any product coming into the state, more than 600 liters. That's 66 cases of wine of a particular product coming into the state of New Hampshire. That is what will enact the offer to the commission to be sold to the commission for sale in the state of New Hampshire. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that at all, but that seems to be where the work is asking to be adjusted is in this paragraph 3.
There's a carrier, probably a carrier oversight here also. Right now, you have to utilize for direct shipping, you must utilize a licensed carrier to get your product into this state. I don't think that was intentional. I think it's an oversight, but that's how we track. So we reconcile the two invoices to make sure that products aren't making it into the state without being vetted out through the appropriate fees and taxes that the state holds them to. So that's all that is.
All right. Thank you. Questions? Senator McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for taking my question. My question is, does this same process apply somewhere else for shipment of spirits? I think we were just talking about wine and wine cases and whatnot.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, this does cover spirits and beverages. There's just different parameters for those thresholds for the liquor.
So we have direct to consumer
Liquor, yes.
For spirits and
beer, wine, and liquor, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on Senate Bill 563? Mr. Dupree, come on back up.
I'm taking back the wine. No, just 2 points. One, I was very concerned about the idea of if you allow this, what's to prevent a restaurant going, hey, I don't want to pay that 25%. You don't want that burden. Instead of sending me the Chiboumy Knoll 2015 award-winning Chardonnay, why don't you send me some 2014 and we just won't report it? My whole theory was it should go through the Liquor Commission. So if Chiboumy Knoll says they sent 10 cases to Steve Dupree of the 2015, we have to keep that list. And when an inspector goes out and he says, "Ooh, you bought some 2014, you should lose your license." As a restaurant, you should lose your license for 90 or 100 days. Make the penalty so severe nobody will screw with it. And then I don't know much about the licensed carriers other than this. Most of the wines that I would get here, I wouldn't trust to most of the licensed carriers. Most of the wine I purchase either has to ship in April or October in a specific temperature window with a guaranteed temperature maintained in the vehicle, because you can ruin, I know that sounds snobby, and I'm just a hick from North Conway, but you can ruin good wine really fast. So I don't know much about the licensed carrier, but there does need to be a way to make sure people can't cheat. I think if the hub were through the Liquor Commission, we could do it. I understand we can ship 12 cases. That's not that much.
No.
And I understand you can apply to get permission to go above that. It just makes it harder. Our goal should be to make it easier. The other thing is, all of these wineries are registered with the state of California. So I think you see less fraud than you might see in the spirits business. The final tip I'll leave you with, given the tariffs with Canada and the wine business in general, a ton of the best Cabernet grapes, the best Hudson Cabernet grapes 3 years ago was $8,600 a ton. You can buy them now for $5,000 a ton. What that means is in about 2 years, you can get some great wines at Costco.
So we're going to see deflation in the wine category. Is that right, Mr. Dupree? All right, thank you. Anyone else on Senate Bill 563? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on 563 and begin 418 in just a moment. I apologize for the delay, but those of us who ride trains say late trains get later. Seems to be happening. All right, we're going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 418 with Aaron in place and Senator Sullivan before us. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, I am Senator Victoria Sullivan. I represent Senate District 18, which includes Manchester wards 5 through 9 and the town of Litchfield. I am here to introduce Senate Bill 418 on behalf of my constituent from Manchester Ward 6. I'm coming before you today regarding an issue that unfortunately gained national attention. You may have heard it referred to as Picklegate. The rules adopted by the city of Manchester in regard to pickling made national headlines and shed light on the city's overreach into people's kitchens. One of my constituents was simply making pickles in his kitchen and posted some pictures on Facebook. It sparked the interest of friends and neighbors. One of them offered him money for the pickles, to which Mr. Mowry replied in jest, "Yahoo, a cash customer." About a week later, he received a cease and desist letter from the city health department. No one from the department ever made a phone call to him to inquire about what happened. They just went right for the cease and desist. For the record, he never sold a jar of pickles. He was simply giving them out to friends and family. But this incident raised a lot of concerns about the government overreach into things that have always been a part of the American way of life, like pickling. The national outcry on behalf of the injustice done to Mr. Mowry was enormous. There were memes of Mr. Mowry in a Superman cape holding a pickle. There were memes calling for Manchester to free the pickle. People showed up at City Hall in support of Mr. Mowry and called for the end of Picklegate. Besides the ban on pickling, the city held bans for lemonade stands, baked goods, including those for school fundraisers, which resulted in many schools ending these fundraisers or requiring store-bought, individually wrapped items that, as we know, are filled with chemicals, additives, and preservatives. They are often less healthy than homemade baked goods. Also were included in the ban were dry rubs, spices, and repackaging of pasta. To the city's own admission, they did not apply the rules equally and looked the other way on some of these items. Many asked why then were they discriminating against the pickle and the pickle man. Although after enormous pressure from the public and several aldermen from the city recently lifted bans on the above items, the pickles remain outlawed. The state of New Hampshire has recognized and honored the importance of the continuation of the tradition of homesteading. The regulations set forth are reasonable and should be honored throughout the state. Opponents of this bill will make an argument about food safety. Nationally, fresh fruits and vegetables cause more illnesses than homemade pickles. When the Manchester Health Department was asked by Alderman Cantor if he had seen any cases of botulism, he cited the recent instance of contaminated baby formula. But that formula was produced in a highly regulated commercial environment, not by a homesteader. The food industry is one of the most highly regulated, and yet we see national outbreaks of listeria, E. coli, and other foodborne illnesses. There is no regulation that will 100% provide protection all the time. And although the health department is well-meaning, they are in fact overstepping. Mr. Mowry could go to the farmer's market in Hooksett and sell his wares. He is only an outlaw within the Manchester city limits. I thank the committee for your time. On behalf of my constituents, I ask that you give SB 418 an ought to pass recommendation out of committee. End Picklegate. And ladies and gentlemen, please free the pickle.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions? Seeing none, appreciate
Thank
your
you very much.
introduction and testimony. Sarah Scott from AFP.
Good morning again. For the record, my name is Sarah Scott, and I'm the Deputy State Director for Americans for Prosperity here in New Hampshire. And I am here today in support of Senate Bill 418. This legislation is something that's very important to a lot of our activists, and it's also something that is personal for me. Like a lot of other Granite Staters, I am a hobbyist gardener. I at least try to be. I will not pretend that I'm an expert by any means, but I grow a lot of my own vegetables. I do things like make salsa, pasta sauce, breads, things like that. For me, this is just a hobby, but for a lot of Granite Staters, this is more than that. It's not just a hobby, it's a way to share food with neighbors and friends, participate in local markets, and for some, it's a way to make income on the side to provide for their family. SB 418 is really about protecting that opportunity. You've already heard about Picklegate or Free the Pickle, whatever you want to call it. I think this situation in Manchester really highlighted something that had gone under the radar for a long time. This is the kind of situation and that example in Manchester of why this legislation is so important and needed. Laws like this are part of a broader trend nationwide. Across the country, every state has some form of law around cottage food laws or homesteading, and they allow people to prepare and sell certain foods without needing a license for it. We passed this back in 2011. We have some of the best laws in the country, but the struggle right now is we're seeing some of these local rules overriding the state framework. And this just creates confusion, inconsistency, and often just makes it so difficult that people aren't going to even get started with it. We believe at Americans for Prosperity that government should make it easier, not harder, for people to turn their skills into income. And SB 418 ensures that if this product's already exempt under state law, the rules aren't going to be any different just because you're one town to the next. Living out in Somersworth, I get to live in some of the best farmers markets around. And I realized recently that if you were a vendor looking to get started in the area where I live, naturally you'd probably look to the three largest cities in the area, so Dover, Rochester, and Portsmouth. All three of those cities right now have different food licensing. So if I was a vendor that decided, you know, on my weekends, I'm going to start making jams or pickles, I couldn't go to just my regular local farmers markets in those three cities. I'd probably just have to pick one, or honestly, once I started looking into it, I probably would never get started because there are so many burdens and obstacles to getting started here. And oftentimes the people that are most affected by these barriers are retirees, parents, families just looking to make some extra money on the side. So removing these unnecessary hurdles and aligning everything with state law would really help to keep these local markets vibrant and the dollars circulating in our communities. So SB 418, we think, strikes the right balance between protecting public health while still empowering Granite Staters to work, create, and contribute. So for those reasons, we ask that you vote ought to pass on this legislation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, appreciate your testimony. Daniel Mowry. Good morning, sir. Oh, now you're off. There you go. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. Thank you. My name is Daniel Mowry. I am the pickle guy. This is
I've
not
heard about you.
you and all throughout the country and in Canada and everywhere else. So I am for SB 418. I've been canning pickles since I was 15. Just put it this way, I'm over 60. So like Senator Victoria Sullivan said, I've been canning bread and butter pickles, been given to my family and friends for years. I checked my pH level on my pickles. pH level for bread and butter pickles, anything under 4.6 Mine ranges from 3 to 4. I have a medical background. I teach CPR first aid, so I know about health and safety. What the city did to me is overpowering, and no investigation is ridiculous. So there are a lot of people in our city that do make make pickles, jams, jellies, breads, and the city is overreaching the power. I am about eating healthy. I can my own marinara sauce. I made 120 quarts of bread and butter pickles, and right now I have none in my house to bring because everyone wants them. So anyways, I support SB 418, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? All right, appreciate your testimony. Chrissy Cantor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and Senators. My name is Chrissy Cantor. I'm the Ward 6 Alderman in Manchester. Yes, Ward 6, where all the controversy started and escalated well beyond our city. I'm here to ask for your support of this bill and to ask that Manchester citizens not be treated differently than the majority of citizens across New Hampshire. I believe we should be 100% aligned with the State Homestead Food Act. And to be clear, this is not an argument against local control, but self-inspecting cities and towns absolutely have the right to create rules that fit their communities. That is a good thing. However, local control also means listening to the people who live there. And this is one of those moments where the state and the cities can work together in agreement to support the citizens of Manchester. Food safety matters. It matters to all of us, but regulations also need to make sense and be based on actual risk. This past fall, Manchester Health Department adjusted our homestead rules to allow baking, which benefits bake sales and local small producers. We all agree that this was a positive step. However, the city still chose to not fully align with the rest of the state's homestead laws. So I have to ask, are we saying that the state of New Hampshire does not follow proper food safety guidelines? I don't think so. Adopting the state's homestead standards would support small startup businesses, grandparents that have been canning and sharing for decades, not knowing that it was actually illegal. It would boost the local economy, promote food freedom, and remove outdated restrictions that prevent citizens from selling low-risk homemade goods like baked items and canned pickles. I've spoken with many Manchester citizens who simply want to sell or share canned pickles to support their families or test a small business idea, but they are prevented from doing so by rules that don't apply to our neighboring towns just a few miles away. This bill does not eliminate food safety standards. It aligns with Manchester. It aligns Manchester with the same standards already trusted and successfully used throughout most of New Hampshire. This bill is also about fairness, consistency, and trusting citizens to follow the same standards their fellow surrounding town neighbors already do. I respectfully urge you to support this bill. At the end of the day, we would all benefit from consistency with state law, reduced bureaucracy, and less government overreach. Can you please support this bill and let the Manchester citizens be treated the same as their fellow neighboring towns? I also want to share that when this news broke, my mother reached out to me and said, from Florida, and she said, to think that I've been illegal all these years when I've been pickling my jams and sharing them is just crazy. So let's live free and pickle on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, Paul LaFerriere, did I get that close? Living on a farm, farrier is a word we use, but
it always gets butchered.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I did. We'll try to keep butchering to the cattle.
That's all right. It's 66 years of butchering is still okay, you know? That's how old I am. Hi, my name is Paul LaFerriere. I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire, and I've ran for Ward 4, and I got involved with this Picklegate because I am a retired chef, retired caterer, retired business owner in the state of New Hampshire. And when I found out that I can't even make my own pickles, which I'm pretty darn good at, and then here Daniel got shot down and not even a full investigation. Where's the fairness to that? Automatically, he had to cease and desist, stop making his stuff, and I was ready to get some pickles from him because I just caught it online. However, he was turned down, he couldn't do it. The Homestead Act in the state of New Hampshire has been applied to help the little guys make things and support their income on the side as well, not making $1 million. Let's face it, making pickles isn't gonna make you a millionaire. But it's gonna help support people that do these things. Which would help me too, because I'm a retiree and I'm collecting retirement checks. Guess what? The bills keep going up, but I can't sell pickles. Let's change that. I really would love to see you guys support this bill as well. Help us out, make it worth Manchester's while, the residents there, to be able to do the things that are allowed to happen through the state of New Hampshire and not just in surrounding towns that doesn't let us do that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I wasn't too far off on your name.
No, you did well. You did well.
All right, thank you very much.
Have a
Appreciate
great
it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on Senate Bill 418? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing and we will move on to 639 in just a moment. No, you're fine. No worries.
We're not doing it.
No. Whoa. All right, I'm going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 639 and welcome Senator Donovan Fenton as the prime sponsor. Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I might recommend we get new chairs up here in the future.
Yeah, those don't seem so.
A little short.
Yeah, well, you know, you're a tall guy.
True,
Now, if I
true,
were
but it
sitting
makes me
there-
look short. So
If I
that's
were
what I
sitting
want.
there, I'd be peering over the bottom of the desk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's been a long morning, so I will be brief. For the record, I am Senator Donovan Fenton, and I represent District 10, and I'm introducing Senate Bill 639, which establishes a committee to study the health and safety impacts of red dye 40 and other food additives in food and beverages sold in New Hampshire. To be brief, this bill creates a thoughtful and deliberate process to study the science, examine policy decisions, and understand the real-world impacts of this food dye and these additives on families, schools, and businesses here in this state. I'm also well aware that the federal government has expressed interest in banning such dyes and additives as well. And if that is the case, I think this bill is a very good placeholder for us in terms of how we implement what the federal government does in terms of these small businesses, these bakeries, these wholesale retailers that have a lot of these products already, and how we can help them kind of mitigate losing such products and finding alternatives. As you can read through the study committee established, we'll do a couple different things: review scientific evidence, examine potential impacts on schools, consult with stakeholders, consider approaches on how we go about this. And I will just say that it's also worth noting that other states have gotten rid of these additives. The European Union, red dye 40 is not banned outright, but it requires warning labels on them. And countries such other countries as the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Norway, and Austria have effectively removed them or limited these synthetic dyes as well. So I think this legislation creates a responsible forum for legislators and experts to work together to evaluate credible evidence. I almost said edible evidence. We want to get rid of that. Credible evidence to kind of learn about these decisions and how they will impact the state of New Hampshire and our small businesses. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there questions? I have one. So the European Union knows, and a number of states know, and we know based on research that this is likely a carcinogen, right? Do we need a commission, or should we just propose an outright ban on it?
I always thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I always urge caution just in case those small businesses, think about, the corner store that sells Gatorade with red dye 40 in it. Now they lose that product.
That has red dye 40, really?
It does, yeah. Some of these products have, Skittles, you name it, all this stuff has these dyes in it. So yes, I would love to do that because I've seen how my children react when they have these dyes in their system, and it's true. These are health is wealth, and you are what you eat. And I think we should get to that point, but how do we do it in a responsible manner where it doesn't impact that small baker who may use some of these additives, for cost effectiveness, things like that. So yes and no is my answer.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Representative Yuri Polozov. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. For the record, Yuri Polozov representing Merrimack 10, Hooksett and Dunbarton. I'm here in support of this bill. I hold a master's degree in biology, and this is my second term on the House Health, Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee. Our state faces chronic disease epidemic. The cost to Medicare and the cost of special needs is crushing us. And what our constituents eat is a major part of it. If you look at line 14, the oils that our constituents consume or don't consume, also a major part of it. If you look at lines 18 to 20, listing various stakeholders, in ideal world, our legislature needs to create a system where the stakeholders and departments would automatically produce the best science and follow it, making our food healthy. Unfortunately, current financial and other incentives do not always allow for that. And that's why it's up to us to review and discover the best nutritional science. And short of every senator and representative educating themselves, forming a study committee is the right thing to do. And also answering your question, yes, absolutely, we would need to ban every chemical that is increasing cancer for our constituents, but just being a carcinogen is not scientific enough because everything depends on exposure, on concentration. As you know, just living in granite state and having some radon also might be increasing incidence of cancer. So sometimes we need some radon mitigation systems, but we are not banning people just living on granite. So the same here. That's why we need a good sound science being discovered and followed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on Senate Bill 639? All right, seeing none, I'll close the hearing on 639. We will begin with an executive session next week for those who may be interested, and we will review some of today's bills at that point in time. Anything further for the committee? I'd love a motion to adjourn, and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.